Live streaming is on.
Hello, world. My name is Gerry Fialka. We're thanking Clint Ignatoff, the Netizen Supreme himself, on February 12th, 2021. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with Bill Kuhns. That rhymes with prunes. Is that right, Bill?
Kuhns.
Kuhns. I knew I'd get it wrong. That's why I asked you. Kuhns. Bill, thank you so much for your time and energy today. You did a McLuhan mashup with us, and we were so blown away. I said, hey, I want to do a mess with you. That's the Media Ecology Soul Salon. You know, Marshall and Bucky did that in the Bahamas with Mary Jane Schultz many years ago.
It rained all the time. They were rained out on that one.
I like that. See, I knew you would know what to. So the first question, Bill, is what's the best thing for a human being?
What's the best thing for a human being?
Yep.
Another human being.
Hey, how'd you know that's the right answer? There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but you got the first one right. We can end right there. Thank you. Oh, Clinton's already shopping. We'll have to continue. Bill, what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
I'm partial to movies. I'm a
wow.
movie freak.
You wrote a book on movies too. That is heavy. So before we go into that for a second, let's ask you, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Their brain is wired to do that.
Right. So you're saying it is hard. It's an innate thing for humans to collect information.
Paleolithic hunters scoured the jungles and the forests, collecting information about where the droppings on the ground were and where they were coming from, where the monkeys were living in the trees that they could hit with slingshots. Everything was information. Tribal man was living in a world of information, just a little different from ours, but more multi-sensuous. Ours is very visual.
Yeah, multi-sensuous. So theirs was multi-sensuous. So would you say that the eye experience, the visual experience, is more impactful than the ear experience?
Impactful, I'm not sure, but it takes up a bigger region of the brain. They know that much. The whole back half of the brain is like a big inverted screen, taking in what we're seeing, and we're constantly feeding it visual information. But the ear does a different thing with information. It's more emotional. It's more. It tugs at the soul and the heart more directly.
You said they. Did you mean neuroscientists or anthropologists or both?
Both.
Yeah. Man, you are amazing. That was a great answer because you anticipated the next question. Do you have ESP?
Not that I know of.
Do thoughts create? Yeah, let's take a moment to laugh there. That was funny. I know it. I know you have ESP. You don't. Do thoughts create emotions?
Thoughts create reality.
Wow.
I don't think we walk around in a world of real things so much as we walk around in a world of real things as we've thought them to be real.
Is thinking innate or more invented?
It's both, but I think it's more invented than innate. And what we have for that is the structure of languages that structure the world. The work of Worf, Sapir, and Dorothy Lee all suggests that different languages live in different worlds, constructed in different ways. A language without tense is a world without a sense of time as we know time, the linear progression of time.
But that was good because that Whorf thing always confuses me a little. They're anthropologists.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marshall was heavily influenced, right, by them.
Yeah. Ted Carpenter sort of clued him into that world.
Oh, Ted did it. That's good. But you've observed humans. I know it's both, and it depends. Do you think humans are more thinking beings or feeling beings? I know it's both, but that's the more question.
I think they are swayed by their feelings more than they're swayed by their thoughts. As witness what's going on in your country right now. I'm in Canada.
Yeah, like this very moment swayed. See, I love when people reword my questions with a different verb because I like swayed. Swayed is way better than are they more. Swayed is good. Bill, do you more pursue meaning or more pursue happiness?
I think meaning is the route to happiness. It's the pursuit of meaning that gives you happiness. It's the journey. It's the fun of seeking something.
Well, if the journey is more important than the destination, why do we have to name a destination or have a destination?
Because that's probably the nature of the way we think. It's built
you mean
into our thinking apparatus.
It's built into us that we have to have a goal or a destination.
Yeah. We need to know where we're going. Odysseus had his own destinations, but the fun of the Odyssey is watching the voyage.
Watching the voyage, yeah. But I wanted to go back for a second because I left out. Do you think Chomsky's right that language is innate in humans?
By now it is. I'm not sure it was originally. The very, very proto language of the very first humans, as they stuttered the first proto language, I'm not sure it was that innate for them. But it's become innate, certainly. It may be an area of neurology that you can trace the evolutionary progression and the changes in man that are not strictly cultural.
Did Marshall agree with Chomsky?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but
I haven't found any reflections on Chomsky in his writings.
Wow. Did the thing you just talk about, is that called epigenetics, where genetics changes? I always get confused with how they say, well, I say, is that DNA? And they go, well, DNA has changed. Is that epigenetics, or what do you call that? Do you know?
I don't know what it's called.
Okay, how about this one? Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness?
We don't know. We don't know the relationship between the brain and consciousness. Apparently, there are people who are lying flat on their beds in hospitals, whose brains cease all activity, but they maintain consciousness as a result. They sometimes see themselves floating above their bodies or something like that. Consciousness may have its own distinct existence separate from any brain function that we can localize or identify. We don't know. That's one of the great unknowns of brain science. Where does consciousness come from?
That is really well put. I love how concise you are, Bill, and you're down to earth. You really communicate well to me. And I like it because it's almost like when McLuhan said that artists are sort of dreaming awake. So everybody has dreams while they're sleeping, but artists can actually dream while they're awake. And that's sort of like someone said, when you read Finnegan's Wake, it's though your body pulls away and watches your other body reading. And then you go, oh, that's what you can observe what reading does to you. So you could pull your body away when you're dreaming, This is like Fellini, go to movies. Our new myth is movies. And Fellini feels like you're dreaming that you're dreaming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the parallels between Fellini and Joyce are probably pretty strong, because they were both very close to their own unconscious, and they were both playing with modes of consciousness and unconsciousness, and how behavior is a kind of dance between the two.
Yeah. Now, can people be aware of that dance, or they just got to fall into it? Oh, well, no, here's the Nietzsche quote. We should consider everyday loss on which we have not danced at least once. Like everybody should dance once a day. So, yeah, go ahead.
Gerry, I love how a conversation with you is a seance. The dead come alive.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God. Nietzsche said God.
Fellini, Joyce, now Nietzsche.
Yeah, Nietzsche's not dead. He's still living.
They all are.
Yeah, seance is a great word because it ends with ANCE, which ends the same words that end with dance. Well, thanks for that. Now, Bill, the big one. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought. And that's not
Wow.
me, that's Marshall.
Oh, Marshall said it?
He said the speed of thought is hundreds of times faster than the speed of light.
Wow, that is heavy.
I can send you a reference on that if you like.
Oh yeah, you at the end we'll catch up. Okay, there's a quote by a poet. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Audre Lorde. Another poet, dancer, Yvonne Rainer said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool can you suggest? But it can relate to the quotes or not. Either you pick or choose.
The tool that I would look for is a method to find out what is true from what is misinformation. And I was reading a book recently. I don't know how valid this is scientifically, but I'm told it's pretty accurate. It's called Power versus Force. And I forget the author's name, but essentially it says that the unconscious can recognize what's true faster than the conscious mind can. And you can do exercises with picking up muscular activity that reacts to a statement or a proposed true thing or untrue thing, and the muscles will tell you whether it's true or not. That sort of technology, or that sort of act, kind of a neurological divining rod, strikes me as being a very interesting technique for dealing with things like what are they called, super fakes or videos that are constructed from AI.
Yeah, deep fake or whatever.
Deep
Yeah,
fakes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're just around the corner from being flooded with that stuff, and we've already seen the effects of things like QAnon and other outrageously ridiculous claims that people believe to be real.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking that we need something that helps us navigate those waters as we enter them. Very choppy water.
Love that. Navigate that maelstrom. And that is because I know as a kid, 50 years ago, I went to Pasadena, Disneyland. I saw an automatron robot of Lincoln talking, and so they could have slipped in some words that he didn't say. And now, anybody could go online and take footage of Marshall and edit it so it looks like he's saying something that he didn't say.
Well, I'm working on a film where we're looking to if we can find a deep fake voice to deep fake Marshall's voice with stuff that he did say in the writings, but we don't have an audio version of them. I would love that if we can do that for the film.
Yeah, no, that is really good. And I'm sure you can find AI algorithm hotshot young kid who can just design it. But the beauty is, isn't the service of what you just described, Bill, a tool to enable people to develop better critical thinking skills?
Maybe. I mean, we don't know how soon after the invention of language came the invention of lies. It's possible that one of the motivations for the invention of language was the invention of lies. We don't know the relationship between those two.
That was one of the things you said in our mashup that just knocked me off my seat. That was pure seance. By the way, you know about the two ladies who sort of first started doing seances, and they would get the people in the room, their clients, and they'd all be holding hands, and they go, okay, I want to talk to my dead uncle. And you know, they go, okay, complete silence. And then the two ladies doing the seance, you know, collecting the bucks, the mediums, they would crack their toes and they go, they're in the room. Did you hear that? Because they had the ability to crack their toes and make this sound. I love that idea. You know, we're just cracking toes and, yeah. Oh my God, that was Marshall. He's in the house. So, Bill, Marshall learned from Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They broadcast the hidden psychic effects of what we invent so we can cope with them. But Marshall said, why do we still ignore the hidden psychic effects, even though we can look to the artist to reveal them to us?
Well, he was mystified how we ignore the psychic effects. He was mystified that the Greeks never figured out that techne, which is the things that we make, never found a place into Aristotle's thinking or Plato's. He was mystified that the whole history of thought has ignored the effects. We build tools and the tools rebuild us. And that second part of the equation has never been examined. So that's a big part of understanding media that he published in 1964. Narcissus narcosis, he called it. The inability to recognize the effects of our own extensions on us.
So you're saying he was mystified that we ignore them, but I'm asking you, why do we ignore them? Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects if we can look to the artist to reveal them?
Let me give you a very contemporary example. How many people are studying or discussing the real effects of social media, which have become anti-social media? I mean, we're using social media right now for this as a platform for this conversation, but many of the uses of social media have led to things like the outrageous attack on the Capitol in January 6th. They've led to a tribalizing of different elements of society and the siloization of what I call Me Too media, just for me media. So why is that not being given more attention and consideration? And why aren't we teaching kids in schools how to deal with it?
It's a brilliant question. And as John Cage would say, Bill, that's a very good question. I wouldn't want to ruin it with an answer. No, I think it's because we're zombieized by all our inventions. That we just are the fish swimming in the sea of inventions, and we never really, you know, there's a few people, Jaron Lanier, you know, helped invent virtual reality, and I've talked to him about.
He's a very cool guy.
He's cool, and I've talked to him about Marshall and Finnegan's Wake, and he knows, but you know, he's deep in the swamp muck of the whole thing, and he says, "Oh, we should study the effects a little." and figure out what it's doing to us. And like you brought up social dilemma, these guys are all the worker bees in the social media world, and they go, well, I won't let my kids use this. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Jaron wrote a very good book on that, by the way, 10 arguments for deleting your social media accounts.
Yeah. But it's also,
I got it somewhere.
Yeah, but it's also like Manders writing 4 reasons to shut your TV off. I don't think Marshall was really saying shut your TV off. I think Marshall was saying you can fast from using TV, but try to study how it shapes your behavior, because it's just another tool.
Well, he was saying it shapes our behavior more than any other technology since the invention of the alphabet.
Yeah. But he wasn't saying, was Manders taking him a little too far? He wasn't saying shut it off completely and never turn it on.
In a couple of contexts, he did. He once said to a friend of his, if we don't take an axe to all these things, it'll be the end of everything valuable in Western civilization.
That's the futurists. They said, destroy the art museums. Whoops. Okay, because there's museums that have all the old TV sets in them. Bill, are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
You asked me that last time, and I'm afraid of old ideas wearing new garb and pretending to be new ideas, particularly when they're dangerous ideas and they've been proven to be dangerous ideas.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I might repeat a few, but it's all right. Let's go to the next one then. What's your earliest memory? Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
I was in an eye hospital in Toledo, Ohio, at the age of something like 4 or 5. All I remember of it was the hallway and the fact that it made me dizzy looking down that hallway. I had just come out of an eye operation to correct astigmatism, I was told later by my mother. But that would be my earliest memory that I can put a finger on.
That's pretty good. Do you think memory is more a curse or more a blessing?
Depends what age you're at.
Oh, good answer. Depends on the age. That is good. So, tell me one of your earliest role models, someone who had an impact on you within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, just briefly. And what specifically was that impact?
My mother was very good to me.
What did you get from her? How did she affect you? Being good to people, or what?
She encouraged me to be as inventive and creative as I wanted to be.
That's nice.
She brought me things like blocks to play with and all kinds of creative things, tablets.
Nice. And so outside your immediate family, an early role model or someone made an impact on you?
The most important one was a teacher who taught me that I could read whatever I wanted. Up till then, I thought you had to read what they wanted you to read. But after her, I discovered I could read anything I wanted to read.
Nice.
I'm a much more avaricious reader.
How cool. So, did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Catholic.
Wow. Did you check out at any age?
In my 20s, I think I did. Yeah.
And then did you, so did you pursue any other religions, or you just checked out and that's it?
I'm still very interested in spiritual phenomena and people who seek spiritual avenues of more existence. I think we're trapped in a very narrow confine of existence. What we call the material, physical, political world is extremely short-sighted, and there's more out there. And I admire the people who go looking for it, but I'm not one of them.
Do you pray, Bill?
Do I pray?
Yeah.
Only on people with very weak ideas.
That rates as one of the top answers in 35 years. That's like, do you know Norman Klein? He puts tetrads in his books. You know, he wrote a book on animation. This guy's a good thinker. I says, what's your favorite form of information? He said, honest. He flipped it to an adjective, and instead of it, it's implied I'm looking for a noun. That is a great flip. Now you know, like James Joyce in Finnegan's Wake said, let us pry, P-R-Y. But you changed it to P-R-E-Y. Is that correct?
Something like that, yeah.
You won't commit. What a seance, Bill. What a seance. So if God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Good job, sonny boy.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
That assumes a very interesting idea, the principle that there is a devil.
Yeah.
The latter part of that.
Yeah.
No, I think evil people exist, and that the evil is defined as the absence of anything that keeps them related to the rest of us.
Anything. That's good. Related. That's a past tense. You mean like relating to any of us?
Right. And people who cannot relate to the rest of us are doomed to either fall into pits of loneliness and despondency and depression, or they will spiral into seats of power. They will become sociopathic leaders.
That is good. What's another word you would suss out relating? I like that word you used. How would you suss out what that word means deeper?
Caring.
Caring. What a word. Wow. Is caring innate in humans, or more innate or more invented?
I think it's more innate. I think it's pretty innate. I think you tear a child away from the mother, and both of them are destitute as a result.
Yeah. Bill, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And this one I'll set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Fellini says, I need an enemy. In Chinese proverb, he who cannot agree with their enemy is controlled by them. A lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how do you specifically react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, enemies are such an important part of our history, of our civilization. I'm not sure we know how to live without them. We don't know how to live with them without getting into conflicts, but living without them is another issue. Maybe that's what the 21st century is all about, learning how to live without enemies and learning how to make the whole world find a kinship that we haven't had before.
What a great word, kinship. How about navigating that? But you know, the American Indians said that your enemy is your best teacher. I mean, if your child came home when they were young and said, I have an enemy, what would you say to your kid then? How would you say, well, this is how I would recommend you deal with your enemy?
You're talking about bullies?
Well, that's interesting because when we say a word, it implies various things. So if you want to put into that context, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, if a kid came home and had a problem with another kid at school, probably a bully.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with that. But the best advice I can give him is to outwit the kid. Be smarter than that kid. Do something to make that kid, to bring out that kid's basic stupidity. Bullies are very stupid people because they don't know how to care. They don't know how to be part of the rest of us.
Yeah.
They don't know how to relate.
What's the difference? Oh, go ahead.
They're very confused by the whole idea of relations. And they think power is the only source of satisfaction. So they can be outwitted very easily.
What's the difference between stupidity and ignorance?
Oh, I have great respect for ignorance, but no respect for stupidity. Ignorance is open to learning. Ignorance is open to change. Stupidity is closed to learning and closed to change.
Wow, that's heavy. Yeah, Frank Zappa said stupidity is a building block of the universe. And, you know, I sort of joke that my questions are stupid, but it's in essence, when you don't know something, you could say, well, you're stupid, so you're asking. So it's fun that you distinguish that. But you actually use the word idiot. And I'm always amazed by this science fiction book called More Than Human, which came out the year I was born, 1953. It was written by Theodore Sturgeon, and it was the biggest influence book on Frank Zappa and Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead. And there's one line in the book that I was curious how you would interpret it. The idiot hears the sounds, but they had no meaning for him. He lived inside somewhere apart, and the little link between word and significance hung broken.
That's a lovely line.
What does it mean to you?
It means that their relationship to the rest, the web, the rest of us, and the whole of existence, nature, rivers and forests and clouds and trees, their relationship to that larger world, but particularly the world of other people, is damaged, and it's very fragile, and it's broken somewhere. And that's the source of idiocy.
And then how do we fix it?
Isn't that what a Senate is deliberating on these days?
Let's get real. Be here now. Ram Dass. You know, you went right back to the question because I leave out a bunch of great quotes that I know you're such a great wit and love to laugh. Levi Strauss says, cannibals boil friends and roast enemies. But Baba Ram Dass, you know, be here now. In the George Bush era, he said, I'm having a real hard time loving George Bush. It's like, we should love all human beings. It's like, I'm having a real hard time loving the Republicans and Donald, what's his name? Yeah, it's like Walt Kelly said, we have met the enemy and he is us. Okay, Bill. Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He checked out. He basically said, why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? And then Faulkner said years later, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
If Bergman shows me a tree, that tree has more meaning than any tree I can see out my window.
You picked a good one, because Bergman and Altman, those guys will go, don't base films on literature. They were good at that. What first attracted you to pursue this love of movies? Because you said your first answer was what's the best, or no, what was your favorite form of information was movies. Tell us your history. When did you start consuming movies, and on what medium?
Well, I grew up going to the Saturday matinees when it only cost a nickel. I guess that dates me.
And then you saw them on the big screen, and what attracted you to this experience? I mean, you were seeing movies. What did it to you?
Movies are the heartbeat of the society I grew up in. They're full of a larger life than you could see in normal daily experiences. They can take you anywhere. They can go anywhere in time, anywhere in space, and they expand the imagination in wondrous ways.
Well, you know the routine. Marshall said everything we invent extends some humanness, and I know you probably know Marshall's answer, but if you know skin is extended by clothing, knife and fork extends our teeth, what does the movie extend for you? What humanness?
It extends everything seen by the eye and heard by the ear. It extends, I would argue, it extends the imagination and opens the imagination in all sorts of ways, which is why Netflix is such a very, very smart company these days. They're releasing more movies than any of the studios.
Yep. And it's interesting because Marshall said the movies extend the foot because you're traveling like on a magic carpet. But I like the shutter in the projector extends your eyelid, you know. So if you would just give me a ballpark, the 3 filmmakers or films that had the biggest impact on you growing up.
John Wayne, John Ford, Orson Welles.
Wow,
anything by any of them.
You got a good lineup there, man. And Wells is he's based deep in my hometown here of Venice, California, with Touch of Evil. I come out here, Bill, and I'll walk you around to all the hot spots where he shot Touch of Evil.
That I would love. I would love that very much. It's my favorite Wells film, I think.
Is it really? And look at, we rented a minibus once, because I mean we would just show films free in my venue in an art gallery on the boardwalk, but this guy came to us and he watched Wells shoot Touch of Evil in Venice, California, and he rented a minibus, and behind every seat was a video screen, and he would show the clip from Touch of Evil. Then we'd get out of the minibus and say that's where he shot that part.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got to do that again.
Yes. So a screenwriting teacher told me a great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great film, great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process of making films and writing books?
Well, I've written a lot of books, and I'm only making a film right now. This is my first in my lifetime. That I've written some television and that kind of thing, but that was hired screenwriter stuff. So I'm making a film right now called Marshall McLuhan's Roadmap to the 21st Century. And this is my first experience. Now, hiding my intentions? No, I don't think so. I don't see any point in that. I want the intention to be clear. I want to show Marshall's best thinking on our biggest problems today. Yeah. Because I think he shines lights into the pathways that we've got to navigate better than anybody else.
Yes. We have a commonality there, and I learn a lot from you. Thank you. I've always been impressed by your collection of Marshall probes. And Marshall said there's no such thing as a good or a bad movie. It's a good or a bad viewing experience. Any comment?
Marshall said that?
Yeah. I love that.
Marshall to me stuff I should know, but I don't.
Yeah, no, I look at you. You caught me that media fast one. I swear, Marsh, I'm still researching that one. I really thank you because I pick up stuff, and this one I love because you should hear all these highbrow film people. I say that too. There's no such thing as a good or bad movie. It's a good or bad viewing experience. They go, wrong. I've seen bad movies. But I swear that Marshall's accurate there. But I would like your opinion.
Well, when that quote that you showed me last time, you sent it to me. It ends, stay tuned. That doesn't sound like Marshall. That sounds like somebody who grew up with television. Marshall grew up with books. He didn't say things like stay tuned. So that threw me off right away. I passed it on. I have a guy who works for me who is an amazing sleuth in finding the origins of McLuhan quotes. When I have a McLuhan quote, I need to know where it came from. I give it to him. He's like a scuba diver in the lower depths of Google Books. And he usually can find Diego.
Diego, yeah. No, we got a couple of those, Cameron, McLuhan New Sciences, Richard Altman, Andrew Crystal. They are all like deep. I like that scuba diving thing because I know this quote. The scuba divers down under the water, and the boat says, "Surface at once, boat sinking." That is a great line. Hey, we might catch each other going down. Hey, hi. That's the other one, Bill, I love is, the one where the guy is on he's hired an Indian guide to take him through the deep woods. And the explorer goes to his guide. He goes, "I think we're lost." And the guide goes, "We're not lost. Teepee lost." You know that one?
Yeah.
That's another one. That's the good thing is that you isolate them out of McLuhan's books, and then we can re-see them isolated. It's really good what you're doing. So, Peter Greenaway, this is back to what you quoting Bergman. I like that, or bringing up Bergman. Peter Greenaway said that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. So are experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way, or are they doing something completely different?
I think any film is fundamentally going to have a narrative. It's hard to get away from that. Yeah, it's the way we structure anything we do with words. It's the way we structure anything we do with images. It's our natural habitat. It's the mind's natural habitat is storytelling. So I don't think you can completely divorce yourself from it. Even if you don't intend to tell a story, a viewer is going to look for a story. The natural instinct is to find the narrative arc to something. Yeah. That's what journalism is all about.
Yeah. And I study experimental film deeply, and one of the guys go, if you just put one frame after another, that's sequential, that's storytelling, that's narrative. Even if it's one abstract frame next to another abstract frame, there's still this series, which is somewhat the pattern of what narrative and storytelling depends on. So Michael Apted, who bless his heart just passed away last week, great filmmaker.
The 7-Up stuff, the 7 year stuff.
Amazing. He also feature films, Coal Miner's Daughter. He did some great films. I talked to him about 35 years ago, and I said, why do rock video makers feel so obliged to edit fast? This is when MTV was breaking, and Marty Scorsese said, I edit my films faster because of MTV. And Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. I asked this question with a bias. Can we learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
No, I think everything has been speeding up. I think the average length of a shot in a TV commercial today is about a fifth of what it was when I was young. I remember TV commercials that they're almost languorous. The shots, they'd last for seconds on the screen. Nowadays, it's split second. Everything is very, very fast, and the commercials are the best timekeepers of what's going on in the medium. I think they'll tell you what.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's funny because Abel Ganson was the inventor basically in 1922 of rapid montage. But it definitely had an increase around MTV. There was some rapid montage for 80, 90 years, but it's increased over the last 20, 30 years. But the question is, it's in Michael's answer, can we literally take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed? He's saying if you edit fast, you can take in information faster. Can we literally do that? Learn to take in information faster?
I think we can. I think we have. I think the kids growing up today are taking in way more information than we did or that our grandparents did. A phenomenal amount of information. McLuhan says that the 3-year-old is older than Methuselah because of all the information they've taken in.
Yeah. So is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
Possibly, probably. I don't know. That's an area where I'm really not that well versed. I know that the problem of attention is no longer a problem where we are the primary agents. Attention is defined for us and determined for us by the media more than by our experiences or our desires or our intentions. Do you know a book called The World Outside Our Head?
No, tell me about it.
It's a history of the ways in which human attention has been controlled, diverted, and corporatized, used by, for example, advertising has been doing it for a couple hundred years now, taking our attention and diverting it in a certain way, and we have less control over our attention. And of course, this is what the attention merchants who write the algorithms for Facebook and the social media companies are doing. They're looking for ways to own our attention and make it theirs.
Yeah.
Usually for the sake of advertising, but that's only the short-term purpose. The real purpose, long-term, is control and manipulation. Shoshana Zuboff's book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, focuses on that to a great extent.
Good recommendations there. I'll check these books out because it's sort of like we sort of say to people, well, Marshall wrote 22 books, and all you have to do is read the titles of each book. That's enough. That will get you going. But I always say all you got to do is read the first half of the intro to Mechanical Bride. And Marshall said that advertisers are like, using the technique of the sailor in Poe's Maelstrom short story. You study the patterns, and that why don't we use advertising's techniques to educate? Is that what you got out of that intro? Is that what Marshall was saying?
That's one of the ways of reading it. Sesame Street is a good example of that model, by the way. They picked up on what advertisers are doing, and they turned it into children's television with phenomenal success. Now it's being used in countries all around the world, specialized language and specialized programming to help children in underdeveloped countries or children with developmental problems, giving them a boost up in their education.
So you mean humans can progress? Is human progress cyclical or cumulative?
I would like to think it's cumulative, but we have a lot of evidence that it's not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Marcel Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. What role does the audience play, your reader, in your creative process? When you're making a book or making your film, how much are you thinking of your audience?
The audience completes the work. The artist creates half of a sentence. The audience fills in the rest of the sentence. There's no articulation that is complete in itself without the audience completing it. Rocket Richard, it's quoted in McLuhan, said, "My puck," the hockey player from here in Montreal, said, "My puck flies off the roar of the audience." And audiences have a much bigger role than they understand, or than most audiences understand, or most artists or sports figures understand.
Wait, you mean Ricard, he quoted McLuhan, or Marshall liked to use Ricard's quote? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Rocket Richard, they called him.
Rocket. Yeah, that's a great one. My puck flies off the
roar of the crowd.
What a beautiful quote. That's good. So, Bill, what does your intuition say was the motive of the cave artist? Not with anthropologist or Werner Herzog or anybody, but what's your inside hunch? What was the motive of the cave artist?
If they painted it, they could own it. They could control its spirit. They could make sure that it allowed them to kill it, and make sure they allowed it to give the tribe more meat. It was magical.
Yeah, spirit.
I think their artists were their shamans.
Yes. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
I don't think the two are exclusive at all.
Yeah.
I think you can have a lot of convictions and make compromises as a tactical method.
Yeah, it took 35 years of asking that question. It's the first question I started my surveys with. And it took 35 years before a guy said, depends on what you mean by important. No, but my other favorite answer was a 10-year-old kid. He says, what's more important, conviction or compromise? He goes, those words are too big for me. Bill, thank you. This is fun. Now, you've accomplished a lot, 17 books, and you're still going strong. We need this McLuhan movie bad, man. We need it. There's been a lot of McLuhan movies that I just don't make it, and I got a lot of confidence in your books. Your new book, we got to get that book out. So in your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements? playing a role in their luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
I think you start with ambition, and then you need a lot of skill, and then you need some luck.
Nice. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
It's looking for the language more than it is in a language.
Yeah, looking for the language. Well, that's funny because I must have said this quote last time, but Gary Snyder said, my task as a poet entails the world of seeing the world without, my task as a poet entails the work of seeing the world without language and then bringing that seeing into language. How can you see the world without language?
That's a good question. I would ask that question of people like Benjamin Wharf or Dorothy Lee, who say the world is structured by language more than it's seen without language.
Yeah. Wow. And so a couple of these filmmaker heroes of mine, George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. Cecil Taylor, jazz pianist, says, I'm a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more vehicles for whatever dominant culture or technology is present?
I think the good stuff, the really good stuff these days, more and more, is collective expression or corporate expression or teamwork expression. A good movie is teamwork.
Yeah. Can art making be egoless?
Yes. Can anything be egoless?
That's it.
Tomorrow's Sunday is Valentine's Day. Can love be egoless?
Oh, that is good. Anything be egoless. Was Freud right?
About?
You're answering a question with the question. Bill, you won. You're now the official leader of all seances. I asked this big hotshot movie director, was Freud right? And he goes, that's beyond my pay grade. Is perception?
He was right about a few things. He said that the tighter the group or the tighter the relationship, the bigger the squabble. That a man and a woman living together for too many years will generate conflicts worthy of a world war. I think he was right about that. He had many very astute insights into how people behave and the reasons they behave. I'm not sure that his overall theory of ego, superego, and id is entirely accurate, but those are useful metaphors.
How many years you been with your wife?
I would say 18.
How do you explain your longevity?
With her?
Yeah.
She's a gem. I'd be nuts not to.
You know what GEM stands for? Geo Earth Mother. GEM.
There you go.
I love it. That was beautiful. And so, what's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
I think women have an instinct. I think it's instinctual. Women have an instinct to nurture and protect and grow something. I think men have an instinct to be aggressive and exploratory and build things as opposing to grow things.
Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless. I'm not saying life is pointless, but why is it so difficult for humans to consider it might be pointless?
Because then we'd all be living inside a play by Beckett.
Who's better, Beckett or Joyce?
Well, I don't read Joyce a lot. I have not yet read Finnegan's Wake. I'm ashamed to admit.
Oh, don't worry. You can still drop it. Like you can drop it. You're not like most of those media ecologist guys who just like are so linear. They can't even phantom that Marshall liked the Wake. Don't worry. You got to read it out loud with a group of people anyways. But that's funny because I wanted to go back a second. Did Marshall basically like Freud and like Marx? Did he make value judgments on either of them in a big picture view?
Marx, yes. Freud, no. I don't think so. I haven't seen him, and he did not make value judgments very often anyway.
Anyways, yeah, he said Marx is worth studying.
He found that Marx built his theories around mechanization and the involvement of men in labor with machines, and he thought this was antiquated. Particularly, I think he thought of Marx as a philosopher trapped in the world of the printing press, the mechanized world. And that was his biggest criticism of Marx. With Freud, I'm not so sure. I'd have to do some research.
Very good. Thank you. So Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I believe this film is going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know how impossible that is, but I spend a lot of time working on it.
Bill, I'm so happy for you. And I've made one feature film. So let's talk about if there's anything I can do, advise you, help you, look at a early edit. I'm more than willing. And what element you've been in this business of writing books probably 40 50 years?
Correct.
Yeah. Tell me one major element that's changed and one major element that's stayed the same.
The major element that's changed is the internet. And the element that's changed the same is that books don't get published in binders on paper.
Yeah.
The internet has altered the whole economy, you might say the ecology of writing, because when the printing press came out and books were prepared on the printing press, they were instantly treated as commodities. They were bought and sold. But information on the internet, as somebody said, wants to be free, and most of it is. So it's changed the it's decommoditized what goes into a book.
Yeah, decommodified. What a great word. Yeah, my friend taught me this word, commodity cinema. Has film as an art form been swindled by capitalism?
Every art form has been swindled by capitalism. Everything that capitalism touches, it swindles. I would like to say.
That is a great answer. I love that answer. And I've dropped that question from my survey, but it fit in perfect there. Because one of my favorite filmmakers on earth, Craig Baldwin, he says, yeah, and it's our job to swindle it back. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're usually taught to overcome a weakness. Can you tell me a weakness that you've incorporated to become a strength?
That's a very good question. That's one of your best questions yet, sir.
Thank you.
I tend to be shy and not somebody who's a self-publicizer. But you have taught me with these conversations the benefit and value and joy of speaking out loud about things I normally would keep to my writing.
Nice.
So
that's good.
That would be my answer to that question. But
yeah,
also,
you should.
What you asked rouses something else I wanted to say. Hemingway said that it's where we're broken that becomes the strongest part of us. I asked a doctor recently, is that true? Is that if you break your arm and it heals, is that the strongest part of your arm? And the doctor said, yes, it is. I did not know that. Did you know that?
I did not, but I'm really into that because a gentleman who I know who is both an alternative doctor and a medical doctor said when your body's sick, it means it's working. So I can imagine what you were taught through that Hemingway quote, which is brilliant quote. That's basically, how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? That's what Marshall.
Yeah, that's a good example of breakdown equals breakthrough.
Yeah. And also, I've expanded on that immensely. How do you turn a rejection into a redirection? How do you turn a crisis into what something good, a solution or something? But that was really good what you said. I like that. And I appreciate what I wanted to go back to this word you said, ecology, too, because this is the word ecology started becoming in our lexicon, say with Silent Spring. You know that book. What's her name?
1966, huh?
I thought it was 62, but it's early 60s. But what's her name? I can't think of her first. Rachel Carson. Yeah. So we're learning, there's pollution and we can be ecologically minded. But the way Marshall used the word I learned was ecology is an organism's relationship to its environment. How do you define ecology and what it means when we say media ecology? How do you define that?
I think ecology it's holistic. You're looking at something that's larger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
And it has its own heartbeat, its own soul, its own spiritual value. So you can't just deal with it by diminishing it in terms of numbers or fragments, or studying this bit and that bit and that bit and trying to add them all up and say this is what it's all about. An ocean reef is way more than the animals that take advantage of it.
Yeah. It reminds me of Center Without Margins and all those great things that Marshall's taught us. So anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When every other emotion fails.
Nice. What caused patriarchy?
Men.
That's exactly what Eric McLuhan said. So do you mean biology caused it?
Not biology necessarily directly. The dominance of male thinking and male authority in any society, I would say, is the root cause of patriarchy.
Then what caused matriarchy?
The dominance of female authority in any society.
Right. Can you forget to die?
I wish.
How do you find peace of mind?
I go to sleep at night.
Oh, that is good. On what occasion do you lie?
When there's no alternative.
Bill, if you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Watch out for very smart people who lie very well.
That's practical. Should toilet paper come over the roll or under?
Over. I'll bet you everybody says that. Don't they all say that?
Yeah, well, no. First of all, I'm going to ask you, why do you say over?
It's easier to get hold of it.
That's
and you only have to spin it a little bit.
Yeah.
To get it going.
Yeah. Not 90% to 95 say over. Some people say under. And my friend has the picture of the patent, which is about 110 years old, and it's going over.
I read about a judge once who had to deal with a divorce case where the conflict between the man and the woman is that she wanted it to go under, he wanted it to go over. And it became an irreconcilable difference between them. And the judge said, just get a vertical spindle, will you?
No, he just sawed the roll in half and go, here's your half, here's the other half. You know, and what I was interviewing this great rock star, George Clinton, Funkadelics, and I says, now we're going to get to the playful questions. He goes, I've been being playful all along. That's what I feel with you, Bill. We're like Frank Zappa says, we're serious about being not serious. So that leads to Alan Watts, 5 questions just off the top of your head in like 3 to 5 words, just really briefly. Here we go. Who started it all?
Some wise guy who came up with the first words.
Are we going to make it?
To what?
Very good. Where do we put it?
To the end of this century, I hope.
Yeah. Where do we put it?
If we're lucky, in the bank.
Nice. Who's cleaning it up?
The ones who don't make much money.
Is it serious?
Only if you're not serious about it.
Nice. You know, when Marshall talked about light through and light on, I was wondering if you would hear this out and tell me what you think. Light through is stained glass window, more right-brained, more female. Light on, movies. Well, light through is TV. Light on is film, movies, like a mural, left brain, more male. How do you explain the difference between light on and light through's effects on humans?
I've never been particularly impressed with that dimension of McLuhan's thinking.
Yeah.
I've collected a lot of passages in it, but I'm not completely convinced he was onto something there.
No, I agree. It's like hot and cool. I was never a big hot and cool guy, but I understand these phenomenons he discusses. But the thing is that we live in a light through and light on world now that's merged, you know. So does punishment work?
On children or on criminals or on just general?
Well, yeah, you can distinguish between here's how I usually set up the question. When a criminal gets caught, do they think, "Oh, I've done something morally and socially wrong," or do they think, "Wow, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day"? So let's go for criminals first. Does punishment work for criminals?
I think if you went around and did a polling of people in a penitentiary, it would work on those who feel remorseful about what they did. I'm not sure most of them would feel remorseful, though. I don't know if anybody's ever done such a polling.
Right. Bill, what questions remain unresolved for you?
What happens 1 minute after death? What happens 1 minute before death if you know it's coming?
Yeah. Well, Tim Leary says if you learn how to, what do you call that? Like daydream, a lucid dream, you can direct your path because they say your brain or your mind keeps working for about 6 minutes, even though your physical body dies. So you can direct the path. So, yeah, that's.
But only 6 minutes?
Well, who
How
knows?
about 60 years?
Yeah, who knows? My friend who runs this bookstore, amazing bookstore in Santa Monica, he basically sort of died for 20 minutes. And the nurse went, "Dude, you were dead," and he's back at his bookstore working. And it's always amazing. But, you hear these stories, seeing the white light or, however, but we don't know. That's the big thing. No one will ever be able to really tell us, will they?
So far, nobody's come back to tell us.
Yeah. So what's the function of poetry?
To reawaken wonder.
That is good. If you were a chair, who would you want to sit on you?
Marilyn Monroe.
What an answer. That story of Marilyn Monroe and Elia Kazan and Arthur Miller. Well, I won't go into the details right now, but it is a good one. So, where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. That's John Basil Barnhill, socialist. But in the movie from 2005, V for Vendetta, the quote was paraphrased. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. How do you personally handle false fears like the war on drugs or the war on poverty?
I'm not afraid of governments, but I am afraid of prying corporations.
Right. Anarchy is making rules for yourself, not others. That's Utah Phillips. Who is entitled to make rules?
We all are.
Yeah. What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
One privileges you, and the other you have to privilege others.
What's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
I think rebellion is short-sighted and short-term, and revolution is long-term and has bigger objectives.
Wow. Well, we're getting to that point where we're going to ask Clinton in a couple more questions. It's really been fun here. So, Bill, if a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would be the title?
Thanks anyway.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell would it be?
Horsehide.
Horsehide. What a great smell. My wife was raised on a horse farm. That's a nice smell. Okay. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I would want it displayed in a nudist camp and it would be made of soap.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
An island in Antarctica.
That's good. It's good. You never had it, never want it. You answered it. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I'd throw up.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more and then we're going to bring on Clinton. So, Joseph Beuys, important artist, by the way, he decided to write his own extra chapter to Finnegan's Wake. He said, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh, who is a beat poet and an ad man, you know what ad he made? You will know this. Raid kills bugs dead. How's that for beat poetry? That's like
That's
4
great.
words.
That's a good one.
That's great. Raid kills bugs dead. Lou Welsh said, guard the secrets, constantly reveal them. But it was 1928. Thornton Wilder, a huge Wakean, loved Finnegan's Wake, said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. Bill, you've been very generous. You laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
Learning what nobody else has discovered yet.
Wow. So that's like learning the unknown. Now, I'm going to flip it on you for a second. Then people say, how do you unlearn? So once, let's say in a couple weeks, you learn something no one else knows, then what's the process of unlearning? And is that important?
You leave it behind you somehow. You don't unlearn. You just grow beyond it.
Grow beyond it. Really good. So let's bring that Superman Clinton in here and see if he has a question. He usually knocks it out of the park with the one question. I got to ask a bunch of stupid questions. Okay, Clinton, it's all yours.
Learning what hasn't been discovered yet and still kind of resonating. The problem is that's only half the journey. Earlier on, you were talking about alienated people. It was not your term, alienated. That's my term. But bullies, I think you were describing as those who, couldn't relate to the rest of us. So I think there's this sort of theme there. So someone who's learned what nobody else has discovered yet is going to have a hard time relating to the rest of us. So how does someone complete that journey back once you got the goods?
You find ways to make it relevant.
How do you avoid helping the very smart people who lie very well?
How do you avoid helping them? Or
Well,
coming to them.
Maybe you don't relate to the rest of them because they're all enraptured by the lies. So how do you how do you return to the people without helping the liars lie even better?
Where do you come up with these questions, Clinton?
No, he's
Well,
just
straight for
saying,
the jugular here. All right.
but Bill, I think, let me put in the way I'm perceiving it for a second. Like, we have our pursuits of knowledge. So some people are going to use these ways, like Marshall's tetrad, like it's been said, Kissinger uses tetrad management to run the world. Well, that he has a right. Marshall doesn't own a patent and says, only these people can use it. So how do we avoid people misusing media literacy? Is that what you're saying, Clinton? Or you tell us?
That's a good reformulation of it. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we avoid people misusing media literacy?
You learn, you help people find what's the surest way to the truth.
Yeah.
You don't say, I've got the truth. You help them find their own ways to it. I think that's the surest safeguard.
I was rereading Plato's Allegory of the Cave the other day. Like the original text. And in English, obviously. Obviously. The guy who's chained up, staring at the shadows, who eventually becomes the person who goes into the sun and becomes enlightened or whatever, is dragged, forced every step of the way, kicking and screaming. And he hates it. And all he wants to do is run back down and sit with his friends and go back to watching the stupid shadows on the wall again. And he's literally dragged against his will and it's torturous. So how do you avoid the catharsis of people thinking that finding the truth is fun? Or how do you talk people out of the idea of truth finding as cathartic or enjoyable or happy?
It's an obligation more than it's a pleasure. We're all obligated to find the truth and to live in the truth and to live with other people in what we share is a common belief in the truth. I think that's the only glue that society survives with.
Well, people can relate around a lie, and they'll hold together very well. Yeah, tribalism, maybe.
They do.
But Bill also started early on saying that, you correct me, Bill, it says the unconscious or the subconscious knows the truth better than the conscious. Is that what you were saying?
That's the premise of a book called Power versus Force that argues that they've done tests with muscular activity when certain things have been shown on a wall or whatever, and some are true and some are not true. And the muscles seem to react to the true things better than in ways that are distinguishable than I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the writer.
But you're saying the muscles, I thought you said it was the unconscious muscles.
But the muscles are responding to what the unconscious recognizes and knows.
Yeah.
Also telling is the fact that it's things up on a wall, having just mentioned Plato's cave. So
yeah.
Well, there you go. I was obviously influenced by Clinton's brilliant suggestion there.
It's called effects precede causes. You know, the question was going to go full circle. But that is funny because George Lakoff, he says that, you know, about 80% of us are operating. Well, no, we humans operate sort of on 80% unconscious. We're not consciously operating, but we want to think we are. So how much are we making decisions thinking? But I love this question that Marshall asked, that I've psychoanalyzed this question for years. How about technologies as the collective unconscious and art as the collective unconsciousness? Bill, how do you suss that question out? The beauty of it is that Marshall's asking the question. So he's trying to differentiate between technologies and art. And he's saying tech is collective unconscious, and art is collective unconsciousness. So it really boils down to what's the difference between conscious and consciousness. So what do you think, Bill? What's the difference between conscious and consciousness?
I think consciousness is a wonderful myth. We can't even show it or prove it or articulate it. I wouldn't even know how to give you a synonym for it or a definition of it. Conscious, we know, because we're all conscious creatures, and consciousness, I think, is turning a verb into a noun.
Right. That's
which
but would you
wants to stay a verb?
But are you saying that's Bucky Fuller? I seem to be a verb. American Indians say we don't have no nouns, we're all verbs. But are you saying conscious is awareness?
It's awareness in many directions. It's awareness of sometimes it's awareness of unawareness. If you're falling asleep and you're only semi-conscious, things have a different valence. Things have a different meaning and a different shape and a different color and a different texture than if you're wide awake. So that's one measure of what it means to be conscious.
Yeah.
When you come out of a deep sleep and you're conscious for the first few minutes, you're a little groggy. You're not entirely conscious. So it takes me a few cups of coffee.
Yeah. Well, let's just if you don't mind, I have a couple more. So, we started on this pursuit of what is true. So I always love to quote Louis Buñuel, one of my favorite filmmakers. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Now that's cute, and most people go, that's great, but it sort of implies that if you're never going to find the truth, then why are you pursuing it? So somehow we're probably hardwired to seek the truth. So, Louis saying, I'm for you for seeking the truth. Schopenhauer says an amazing thing. He says, the truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it's accepted as being self-evident. Like, oh, I knew that all along. But Robert Evans, the film producer, said, there are three sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth, and no one is lying.
I like the Evans. The Evans is good.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nietzsche says art is more important than truth. So, I mean, the basic question I'll ask you, Bill, and then we'll ask Clinton in 3 to 5 words. How do you determine what is true?
You listen to what trusted people think is true.
Nice. So you listen to what the people you trust say is true. Yeah.
And what people the best way to trust people is to find out who else trusts them. If they're widely trusted, that's much better. Yeah.
Well, that's funny in the McLuhan world, because we asked, this guy probably, Richard Schinkel, wrote books on film for years, Time Magazine film critic, really important.
My friend wrote an essay that dumped all over Marshall in '73. Did you read that?
No, I know he dumped on Marshall, but he also quoted Marshall in his books. He's like Pauline Kael. She dumps on Marshall too. But my friend was at a party about 3 or 4 years ago with Richard Schinkel, and he goes, so I don't think Michael knew this, but he goes, so what do you think of McLuhan? And Schinkel goes, fraud. And then he goes, well, semi-fraud. I said, you should have said, well, what do you think of him as a Manipian satirist? So that's good. I like we went off, but it's, you look to people you trust and you ask them. So now, Clinton, 3 to 5 words. How do you determine what is true?
Don't trust anybody, especially the people who are widely listened to. um, seek out the people who no one likes and spend as much time with the most radical, alienated, hated people possible, and absorb everything they can from them, and then test what they are disenchanted by back in the society
Yeah.
of people who relate all too easily with one another.
That was good. A little more than 3 to 5 words, but you nailed it. So it's like we got both ends of the spectrum here. Talk to the trusted people, the non-trusted. That's like Mallarmé, one of Marshall's symbolist poet heroes. To define is to kill. To suggest is to create. Okay, we'll close out here, Bill. We can go on forever. We'll just make this. We'll do this every week till the end of time. We love you. So the closing 2 questions, Bill, are: what's the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today?
Another very good question. I think the acknowledgement that we have to learn to live within our means. We have to live within nature's trust fund. I think is the most. I was in Amsterdam, not Amsterdam. I was in Copenhagen a little over a year ago, and I was so impressed. This is a town. The town of Copenhagen is committed to being carbon neutral by 2025. Everybody in that town rides bikes to work. Everybody in that town tries to live as frugally as possible on the produce of the earth. Very little meat in the supermarkets, and the most places you can find meat are in the restaurants. So it's coming, and it's possible, and it's changing, and I think we're going to see that more and more in North America. The recognition that we have to learn new habits of behavior just to survive what we're doing to the climate. And I think that ability to change our habits may reach into other areas. We may learn how to live without war. We may learn how to live without being heavy consumers. We may even learn how to live without heavy-handed capitalism.
Yeah. Boy, really thorough, super, totally agree. And Bill, last question for now. Hopefully this will continue. What gives you the most optimism?
People like Clinton.
Yeah, there you go. We mean that, Clinton. Bill, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed this.
I love you.
We'll do another one with Bruce Powell one of these days, huh?
Oh, I'm going to interview Bruce by himself once, and then we'll get a series going. I love Bruce. Yeah, I want to do that.
He's a brilliant guy.
It's a great suggestion, and I'm glad you reconnected us. So, Clinton, thank you. Bill, thank you.
Good seeing you, Clinton.